Hi guys, welcome back. This is episode number 44 of Matt Chat, featuring an interview with the father of video games himself, Mr. Ralph Baer.
Well, here we are, playing ping pong when we ought to be working. Here's our ball volleying back and forth, one free ball, plus one net, courtesy of a local CATV station. Here's my partner Bill, and we're going to play ping pong for you in a minute, but before we do, I'd like to show you the controls that we're using, which are part of the plug-in module, the ping pong plug-in module, gaming plug-in module of the all-purpose box we talked about earlier. There is a horizontal knob here, as you can see, which, when I twiddle it, moves my paddle from left to right. There's a vertical control, which moves my paddle up and down. Finally, there's an English knob, which allows me to put curves on the ball, control the vertical position of the ball as it leaves my paddle. Whenever I intercept the ball, if I don't miss it, and bat it back at my opponent, I have control over the ball's vertical position, and that's what the English knob is for. And watch me fake him out in a minute.
Now, when most people think about the title of father of video games, they probably think about Nolan Bushnell. And it's understandable that they would think of him. He was, of course, the father of Atari, the Pong arcade games, the Pong home consoles, the Atari 2600 VCS, very influential figure, and I wouldn't want to in any way to disparage his contribution. But really, he didn't invent video games, despite so many people think that. Rather, this we could go back and look at earlier things like Tennis for Two, or of course Space War. But really, in this video, what I want to look at is Ralph Baer and his contributions. Now, in the late 60s, he devised a prototype called the Brown Box, which in many ways is the first video game console. Everything wasn't there yet, but you can obviously look at this thing and see where things were headed. Now, he would sell this Brown Box, or license it to Magnavox, who would of course use it as the basis of their Magnavox Odyssey console. And through it all, Mr. Baer was a very meticulous engineer. He took very careful notes, was quick to patent everything, and it seems like he spent about half his life creating these wonderful things, and the other half trying to defend his patents, because people were grabbing these things and trying to make millions of dollars without contributing anything to him. So anyway, I got to talk to Mr. Baer about those and a lot of other fascinating issues about the earliest days of the video games industry. So without further ado, here's Mr. Baer.
Well, I mean, there was no video game industry. And the Brown Box is the end of a line of 7 different units we built, which number 4 and 6 already had ping pong in it, at which point we could have jolly well stopped, because that's all that was needed to sell the concept later on. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of other things that weren't necessary. But more to the point, if you're trying to compare electronics in general, the period, this is the mid-60s, to today, I mean, it's fair to say that's like comparing flying an airplane to driving around in a chariot in Vesuvius, down Mount Vesuvius, making ruts in the ground. I mean, it just is no comparison. And the whole thing is the result of semiconductor industry coming to its own and inventing at a fantastic rate. Think about it. We were dealing with a discrete transistor, which was already a huge improvement over the world I lived in for 20 years. Vacuum tubes. Right? Think about it. A vacuum tube is like one transistor. When you look at your wristwatch today, there are about 10,000 transistors there. And it's a little piece of junk compared to what you have in your iPhone or your other cell phone or whatever you have. But there's millions and millions and millions of transistors. And one little chip, and a bunch of other chips with a few more million transistors, all executing complex programs, all of which wasn't even imaginable. Never mind, wasn't even the stuff of futurist thinkings. It wasn't even Jules Verne stuff. It would have been so fantastic if somebody had come up with it in a novel, or that it would have been laughed right out of the room. So we're talking about two different worlds. It's very hard, I think, for anyone living today, your generation or your kids if you have a generation, to even begin to grasp what's happened in technology in the last 35, 40 years. I graduated as a television engineer. In fact, it was the first time that degree was given anywhere, in a small school in Chicago. So I'm a TV engineer by degree. I've designed and built studio equipment, transmitting equipment, receivers. I built a whole television receiver at Ralph Electronics in 1951 with another guy from scratch. So I know the art. So what's more obvious for a guy who's creative, which I obviously am, with about 150 patents worldwide and thousands of products out there that I came up with. And what's more obvious than to put two and two together and say, hey, what can we do with those 40 million television sets in people's homes that aren't doing anything except producing what we happen to get with a big antenna on the roof? And the answer was, hey, how about putting some stuff on the screen that allows you to play simple games? That's how it started. And if you look at my book, if you look at the papers on the Smithsonian website, which has all 500 of the documents that Rush, Harrison, and I generated when we part-time worked on the project between 66 and 68. It's all there. You can look at what we did on Monday morning, January 2nd of 1987. For example, you can see paper that shows how we played ping pong and demonstrated ping pong to teleprompter in January of 68, when the idea was maybe the cable business can use games, because cable business was very poor. They needed a shot in the arm. We figured they can produce the colorful backgrounds, which we couldn't generate. No, but all they had to do was point a camera at a nice background, that nice graphic, and there's the background. Have a picture of Wimbledon up in the background, and put your crude ball and paddles on top of that and play against the background of Wimbledon. That was the concept. They ran out of money, so that went down the chute. And that was 68. It wasn't until many years later, not many years, 2 years later, 69, I think, we demonstrated in New Hampshire at Sanders to RCA, GE, Sylvania, Magnavox, everybody who was making television sets in this country. Another unknown fact to anybody under 30, I guess, that we actually made television sets in this country. And they all came, they all saw our demonstrations of what was in the brown box, the end of 7 different development jobs. And they all said, hey, that's pretty creative, yeah, terrific. But did anybody come up with a nickel? No. But RC's negotiated the contract. By the time we got done with that, it was so onerous to us, we just walked away. Fortunately for us, incidentally, all that stuff's in my book, Fortunately for us, one of the team members of the RCA team left the company, started with Magnavox, the VP for marketing in their New York office, and he was so impressed with what he saw. He called Fort Wayne, the headquarters of Magnavox, and told Jerry Martin, who was in charge of television sets and radio TV sets, you got to see that demo again. So they invited us, we demonstrated, and bingo, Jerry Martin had vision, and everybody else said they had a big long face, and he said it's a go, just like that. And 2 years later, there was the Odyssey game. We had no idea whatsoever that it would develop into an industry. To me, it was an accessory to plug in on a television set, to do a neat thing. And I knew there would be advances and there would be better ones afterwards. But it was like inventing a toy. The thought that it would become so popular that it became an industry, that was totally unforeseeable.
And that's all for this week's Matt Chat. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. But I think what he left out was they might not stop at the door. They might break it down and, in fact, loot your house and steal all of your ideas, including your one for a better mousetrap. So be careful, guys. Have fun, and see you next week.